What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cocktails in the War Room. I am Mistress Carrie. Welcome to episode 151 of Cocktails in the War Room. I'm your host, Mistress Carrie. Welcome to my actual war room, which is where I keep all of my military memorabilia and also where the bar is, which is how this show got started back on March 14th of last year. And we are 151 episodes in. And with me is my co-host. Come here, Wednesday. Come over and say hi to everybody. We're trying out the new Pug Cam tonight. Do you want to say hi to everyone? Come over here. Come on. What's mommy got? No, over here. Sit down. Do you want to say hi to everyone? No, back up a little bit. Sit. Good girl. Good girl. You say hi to everyone? We got a new Pug Cam with a bigger lens to see if maybe we could see. So sit down. Good girl. There you go. Good girl. So welcome to Cocktails in the War Room. This is my co-host, my confidant, my partner in crime, the Wayne to my Garth. Wednesday has been riding out the pandemic with me all along, and you can find her on Instagram for all of her adventures at Wednesday the Goth Pug on Instagram, which is why her Instagram handle is on the screen. Wednesday, do you want to say hi? Want to show everyone your coronavirus? See? Show them your coronavirus. I apologize if you have an animal that is now freaking out at the squeaker. If you are new to the War Room, please let me know in the comments. Let me know that this is your first time in the War Room, and let me know where it is that you're watching from so that everyone here in the War Room family can welcome you properly. So hopefully we got some new people in here tonight. The first thing I want to do is thank everyone that came to get out of there, Zero. What are you doing? I want to thank everybody that came to the party. Thank you to everybody that showed up to celebrate the 150th episode of Cocktails in the War Room last week at the boat. Once again, I want to say thank you to everybody at the boat. Thank you to Decomp, who was the amazing acoustic duo that opened up the show. Thank you to Mike Shue for co-hosting, for Josh Dolan for doing his stand-up, for the guys from Shadows of Boston for doing their first ever live gig. Thank you to my friends at Regimental Whiskey for having the Mistress Mule, which was absolutely delicious. So Eric says my dog is losing his shit right now. I'm really sorry. Jimmy says he's watching in Hudson, New Hampshire. The boys say hi. What's up, guys? P4 in the War Room. I'll try and keep it as politically correct as possible for the boys. What's going on, guys? Brandy says, been gone a while. My first night back after moving. Well, Brandy, welcome back to the War Room. Thank you to everybody that joins me every week. This is where we all get together to kind of talk about everything that's going on and not only deal with COVID, but just keep in touch with each other when it comes to rock music, charity work, current events. The War Room, over 151 episodes, has become quite the family and quite the group of people that have really been able to lean on each other. Hey, Wednesday's best friend, Zero, is also here in the War Room, and she's not happy that Wednesday got cookies and that she didn't get any. Wednesday! Come here. Come on, Wednesday. Wednesday, get up here. Zero, here you go. Come here, Wednesday. Come here and say hi to P4 before they have to go to bed. Come here. Come over here. Come here. You're just going to sit over there? The way that you're lit right now looks like you're an angel, Wednesday. I got your little mermaid here. I got your coronavirus here. Do you want your cookie? Sit down. Good girl. Can I have your paw? Good girl. Can I have the other one? No, I want the other one. No, sit back up. That one. Yeah, can I have a high five? High five. Good girl. That's all the tricks she knows. I've been trying to teach her new ones, but it hasn't been going that well. Ani Ange, who also joined us in the War Room last week. Thank you to Ani Ange and Debbie for taking care of all of the T-shirts and the merch. Auntie Anne's chiming in saying the boat is an awesome place. It is, and their buffalo chicken macaroni and cheese tasted really delicious when we finally got all the equipment put away and I was actually able to really enjoy myself. By the way, another huge thank you. Fernandez joined us in the War Room last week, and he also made a special delivery. So to anybody that's new to the War Room, you can usually tell what I'm drinking in the War Room every week based on the glass. And this glass was a gift from someone in mail call, and this has become my official Fernandez Sangria mug. So cheers to you guys. Cheers to 151 episodes of the War Room. Thank you guys for hanging out. It is a COVID squishy toy. Sepsis checking in the War Room. Did you attend the festival they had downtown Leominster this past Saturday? Rodney wants to know. Ooh. Did you guys see that? My light just went out. What happened? That was the Johnny Appleseed Festival. And no, I didn't go to the Johnny Appleseed Festival. Last weekend, there was a lot going on. Now, the ring light, the original War Room ring light that was from what, episode 35 or something? It just died. Man, now I got to try and fix the light. Hold on. I got to bring another light in here. We got to adapt and overcome. The ring light died. What happened? Help. Did it come unplugged? It died. Oh no. All right, well, we got to fix this light so people can see me. Because here, well, whoa, what'd you do? Well, now we got to move this light back. I got assistance now. Thank you. Okay. What were we talking about before shit got weird? How many MCs does it take to fix a light? If you guys have seen the rig for the War Room, if you've come to the boat the last couple times, there's a lot of freaking wires and there's a lot. Walter, get the light, says Hines. There's a lot going on. Oh, so Fernandez dropped off sangria. So cheers to you guys. Hold on. We're making an adjustment on the light. It looks all spooky like a horror movie now. Okay. Are we good? Are we back? Hold on. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. For anybody that's new to the War Room, this is the kind of shit that happens. And now there's a shadow, which is everybody always yells that there's a shadow on my face from all the lights. And then Ian Barrett, who used to host and produced Real Rock TV, gets mad at me when there's a shadow on my face, which is now there's a shadow on the face. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. So Fernandez is sangria. So thank you to Fernandez for dropping off the sangria for me because it's freaking delicious. All right. Are we unfucked? Did we get unfucked now? Seriously. I got shadows and the light died and everything is weird. Oh my God. So can I tell you guys that when I unpacked all the War Room gear, when I got it back after we got back from the boat, everything was sticky. Everything was sticky. Everything was jacked up. Everything was sticky. Oh my God. Yes. Just crazy. It looks like the first cocktail is in the War Room. I know. It's a Halloween theme. We're not even in October yet, and I'm already having like spooky, weird stuff. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Producer Mike Fubar. Exactly. I think we're good now. I know the wheels have fallen off the wagon, Tracy. I know. Should I just start the show over again? Seriously, it's like freaking ridiculous. I've had to do that a couple times. You said fucked. I know, I say the F word. And when I do sometimes, which is fairly often when I'm not on the radio, you have to drink. So cheers. Okay. So, yeah, it is Mike's fault that everything was sticky. Like everything was sticky. I found when I put all the headphones away, I found the set of headphones that Shu was wearing because he has a giant head and they were like completely stretched out and huge. So I found Shu's headphones. But yeah, everything had to be wiped down and deboated because everything got a little spillage and there was sparkly stuff. And yes, everything was sticky, Keith. Get your mind out of the gutter. Thank you very much. Brianna says, glad I could help. Anything for you, Auntie Ange, you're the MVP. Thank you, Brianna. Very helpful. And Auntie Ange definitely was the trooper and stayed super late. And everybody had a good time. Use the red phone, need help. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got to use the red phone. You drink, I drink, Carrie. Yeah, I know. Let's see. It's 11 a.m. here. I could use a drink. Michael, where are you that it's 11 o'clock in the morning? Where are you joining us from the war room? Are you in Hawaii? Where are you? Sticky is good, says Mark. Louder Than Life was off the hook with the booing of Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about in the music news. We got a lot to talk about in the show tonight. So the first thing I wanted to do is obviously thank all of you guys, not only for the people that attended the party, but also for everybody that's been with me over 151 episodes. We have gone through a lot together here in the War Room, and the fact that we're at 151 episodes and going strong is just insane. Let's talk about the podcast first and get the podcast out of the way. This past week, I interviewed Josh Katz from Bad Flower. It was episode 68 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And if you listen to the episode, halfway through the interview, we were actually having a really serious conversation about song inspiration. And then his dog started banging on the door because his dog wanted to come in. And so he had to get up in the middle of the interview and he was like, oh, I'm really sorry. And there's no way I was editing stuff like that out of the interview. So if you listen to the podcast episode, you actually hear his dog interrupt the interview, but his dog was really cute. Josh was really cool. This is a band that I met a few years ago at the Pavilion in Boston, over by the harbor, opening up for Shinedown. That was the first show that I had seen them actually play. Earlier that day, they had come into the studio and played acoustic on my show, and they were just super nice. And they're one of those bands that, hold on, I'm going to move this. Sorry. They're one of those bands that I feel like the lead singer, especially Josh, is one of those super creative people. And when he started talking about how he writes songs and that he needs to be isolated and that he's nervous about bringing ideas to the band because he would take it so personally if they don't like his ideas. He's just one of those people that I feel like this band is destined to do amazing things because they are just so artistic and trying so hard to think outside the box. And I just love them. He's a super cool guy, but definitely out there, which is why I love him, because you guys know how much I love people that are out there, because a lot of people say that I'm one of those people that's out there. And, but he seems like one of those people, kind of like Perry Farrell is, that he just looks at the world completely differently and interprets the world in a completely different way. And if you listen to this episode, he kind of talks about the isolation and the song ideas and kind of where they come from. And the album just came out this past Friday. It's called This Is How the World Ends. And if you have not had a chance to go and see Bad Flower yet, I definitely think that you should go and check them out. So episode 69, who's it going to be? Josh wants to know. It's not going to be Gronk, who was the only obvious choice to get on episode 69, but it's not going to be Gronk. It just so I didn't purposefully seek out an episode 69. there are certain episodes that I try to place at specific times. I will tell you right now, I will give you a little hint that the episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that comes out the week of Halloween, I specifically place that episode the week of Halloween. There are other episodes that's just where they come up. And so that's what's happening this week. Eric says Knotfest was awesome. We got to talk about that, actually. The one in Iowa, the food merchant actually came out today. The company that handled all the refreshments and the concessions. There was a 2-hour wait for water at Knotfest in Iowa. And people are pissed. They're blaming it on lack of staff and whatever, but people were just, it was like Woodstock 99 disastrous at Knotfest. When it came to water and stuff, the bands were amazing. But let's see. Don't know who vended it, Corey and Clown's Kid. Oh, Vended, yeah. Vended is Corey Taylor's son, Griffin, and Clown's son's band, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Thomas says, just saw Alice Cooper and Ace Frehley up in Cow Hampshire. They were great. Going again at some point. Let's see. I'm working on Rob Zombie. Damn it. I got John 5, but Rob Zombie's filming The Munsters right now. So let's see. Can't wait for episode 420. See, now that would be an episode I would want to give to Shu. Because who else would be better unless you were going to get somebody like Seth Rogen or Cheech and Chong. But episode 69, so that was episode 68. So if you haven't listened to Bad Flower yet, definitely go get caught up. It's a really interesting interview. And I think that Josh Katz is just one of these musicians and artists that people should be keeping an eye on. This episode sponsored by Digital Federal Credit Union at dcu.org and also Jag and Detroit podcast. So if you've ever wanted to have your own podcast, if your business wants to have a podcast and you don't know anything about podcasting, Jag and Detroit podcast, this is what they do. They produce podcasts and they do it remotely. So just because they're in Detroit doesn't mean they couldn't promote or edit or produce your podcast no matter where you are. So you can find them at jaganddetroit.com. I think you are going to really love episode 69 of the Mistress Carrie podcast because it's something completely different. When I went down to Rockin' Pod, the podcast convention in Nashville, there were a lot of different people there. Ricky Rackman was there. Carmine and Vinny Appice were there, or Appleseed, however you want to pronounce their names. They were there. And one of the other guys that was down there that was going around doing interviews with people, that's where I interviewed Billy Sheehan. But one of the other guys that was doing interviews is record producer Toby Wright. And when I saw that Toby was going to be at Rockin' Pod, I was like, oh my God, I got to catch up with Toby. Now, if you don't know who Toby Wright is, you feel free to Google him while we're talking. And you will see why it is that I wanted to have him on the podcast. Other than the fact that we've just been really good friends for a long time. I met Toby back in 99 when Seven Dust recorded the home record at Longview Farm Studios in Massachusetts. Toby Wright has been in and around recording studios for decades. He was the engineer on Injustice for All. He produced Jar of Flies. He produced the Dog album for Alice in Chains. He produced Korn's Follow the Leader. This guy has worked with, he produced Here in the Now Frontier from Queensryche. Like, there are countless artists that he has either mixed, produced, engineered, and we talk in this episode about the different jobs and what those things are. Now, Toby also has his own podcast called My Right Stuff. And so what Toby and I decided to do, and this is the first time that I've done it, is that Toby and I decided to combine our podcasts and interview each other at the same time. So this episode of the podcast is as much me interviewing Toby Wright as it is Toby Wright interviewing me. And because he and I have been friends for so long, we talked about a lot of stuff. A lot of things got uncovered in this episode that I didn't know. For example, he and I both played clarinet growing up, which is random. If you guys heard the episode with Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots, he made a big deal out of the fact that I play clarinet because it's a hard instrument to play. And as Toby and I were talking, he played clarinet too, which was just really weird. Toby, and he talks about it a lot in the episode, got into a pretty severe car accident about 15 years ago and had some pretty significant nerve damage down the right side of his body. Well, you guys know that I have 2 different size feet, and the nerve damage that I had from my spinal issues, I have nerve damage on the left side. So he and I would make an unbelievable potato sack race pair for sure. But we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about, wait till you hear the behind the scenes stuff that he talks about with Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell and recording Jar of Flies. It's amazing. Wait until you hear how he got the sounds he got for some of the songs off of Korn's Follow the Leader. We talked a lot about recording the Seven Dust record. Home is one of my favorite albums of all time. Skin from Skunk Anansie appears on that album. Chino Moreno from the Deftones appears on the record. We talked about all of that stuff as well. We also talked about his upbringing and how he helps to craft songs with artists. How you guys hear me in a lot of these episodes ask the artist what the role of a producer is for them in the studio. Here's an opportunity to hear the producer's side of it, to hear what it's like for them to work with the artist and how it is that they are able to kind of act as an outside party to get these artists to where they need to go to make the record they want to make. And this episode is really interesting. This is longer than some of the other episodes have been, but like I said, it's just as much, basically it was like playing tennis with Toby, that I would ask him a question and he would ask me a question. He asked me a lot about the Boston Marathon and running the Tough Ruck, and asked me a lot about radio stuff, where I think radio is going, asked me to talk about the podcast and the War Room. So it's a pretty interesting episode, and I really liked the idea of sharing the episode and having it simulcast on both podcasts. So Toby ended up breaking the episode up into 2 episodes of his podcast. I opted to keep it all as one. Just because you can just kind of get lulled into the conversation, and it's basically exactly the way that it was the day that we recorded it. I do very minimal editing and like production of the podcast when I produce it. Depending on where the people are as I'm interviewing them, sometimes there's an echo. Like Amy Lee from Evanescence was like in her kitchen, so it was really echoey. Nancy Wilson from Heart was having some weird buzzing coming down her internet that day. So I try to go in and kind of denoise it and kind of make it sound as good as I can. But I really try, unless there's some kind of crazy long gaps in the conversation or whatever, I try to leave it as organic as I can so that you feel like you're having this super kind of comfortable conversation experience when you're listening to it. So too bad Johnny Depp is busy. Yeah, but you know what, Michelle, when I interviewed Alice Cooper, he talked a lot about Johnny Depp as a guitar player. And if you haven't listened to the Alice Cooper episode, go back and listen to the Alice Cooper episode, because he raves about what an amazing player Johnny Depp is. How about Brad Garrett or Liev Schreiber? Who are you guys talking about? You guys are suggesting actors. Are these people you want me to have on the podcast, or are these people you're trying to cast into something? Maybe we could ask you questions one night. Heinz wants to know. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I am totally open to putting something up on the website and having you guys submit all of your questions, and me doing an episode where I'm just answering all of your questions. I would totally do that. Let's see. Oh, so who should play Lurch? So you guys are talking about the Munster stuff. Gotcha. Okay. Yes, the Birds. Yeah, Rob Caggiano from Volbeat and the freaking Birds in his backyard while we were recording the episode. Like, some of these things, the only way to control the audio sound is to do the episode in the studio. Whether it be a recording studio, a radio station, even when you're backstage at a concert, the rooms that you're in aren't meant to record, which is why having a studio it sounds really good. You can hear when I'm here in the war room, and I don't notice it until I go back and watch the episodes after, how echoey it is in the war room because the sound is bouncing off the ceiling because the room's not treated for sound. This is just the war room. I didn't intend on it turning into 151 episodes. I just started hanging out in here with you guys during a global pandemic because we were looking for an excuse to get drunk. And now we're in here, but I can't soundproof the room in my house where the bar is. That's what MCHQ is for, is that's the soundproof controlled sound room. But unless someone's in there with me, like Andy Biggio, the author of The Rifle, I'm always going to have to deal with whatever sound issues are coming the other way. Let's see. To play Herman Munster. They were recently filming scenes for that at a house in downtown Groton. Okay, all right, I got you guys now. Let's see. It would be all questions about hoodies and the slumber party. I know. And you know what? I have messaged back and forth. Danielle actually sent me a message last week because she had intended on surprising me at the boat for the 150th episode. And then something came up at the last minute. So I told Danielle when it came time, I really want to have her on the podcast. And I thought if we had her on the podcast first, then we would have her in the war room to talk about the podcast episode and do the slumber party. But that I wanted to have her on the podcast when she got her podcast up and running and the business that she's trying to start up and running so that she would have the ability to kind of talk about everything that she's doing. And she is kind of in the building phase the way that I was last March, April, and May before the podcast went live last June. So even though her podcast is already live, she is still building everything. And that's why Danielle hasn't come on yet. Just finished watching Cruella with my nephews. Emma Stone just signed on for Cruella too. Yeah, Eric, I have not seen that yet, but I heard it's great. Your eye makeup looks pretty tonight, says Christina. Thank you. I think it's better light in here. And for anybody that was at the boat last week, hold on, I need a drink. For anybody that was at the boat last week, one of the things that I've done with the War Room stuff, as you guys know, because I've been testing it with you guys the last few weeks, is I bought a lot of new equipment. So I got new webcams. So if you watched last week from home, I got all new webcams for the guests. So I got a new pug cam, obviously, for Wednesday. I got some new microphones. I got all new cables. I got road cases for stuff. So what's happening now is that it's taking less time to set the war room up here in the war room because all this new equipment made it so much easier to set things up. And so it's leaving me time after I get off the air to be able to make sure that my eye makeup looks good before the show starts. Because most of the time I come running into the war room with my hair on fire and I'm like running 4 minutes late, which you guys have become accustomed to. And I hate starting the show late, but let's see. Anyone ever see Mystic Pizza? You guys are bringing up some rando movies tonight for sure. Speaking of movies, that's going to come up in the War Room tonight as well. So anyway, so this is a really special episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast because you're going to learn a lot more about me than I think you would on a regular episode, but you're also going to hear this really organic conversation between me and a very old friend. And I think his perspective on music and his behind the scenes stories about working with artists like Korn, like Seven Dust, like Alice in Chains, like Metallica. He talks a lot about what Lars is like to work with and what his work ethic is like. And there's just a lot of amazing insight that only a producer that works with these bands is going to be able to give. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear this week's episode. It was his episode 19, part 1 and part 2, which you see up on the screen. He called it a conversation with Toby Wright and Mistress Carrie. But for me, it's episode 69 of the Mistress Carrie podcast featuring producer Toby Wright, and it goes live at midnight tonight. So you definitely do not want to miss it. Once again, the Mistress Carrie podcast has a few different parts. So if you subscribe, You also get the sit rep, which is every Monday through Friday. You get all your rock news, music headlines, and industry info, all boiled down in less than 5 minutes. It uploads in the middle of the night, so no matter how early you get up to go to work, the sit rep is sitting there waiting for you, and it'll just get you up to date on the quick stories, everything you need to know. And then if you want more information, you go into the show notes of the episode of the sit rep, and all the stories are linked there. Now, I will tell you, the playlist that goes with episode 69 is long. There is a lot of music in this playlist because Toby works with so many artists, and we talked about so many bands that the playlist is unbelievable for this week's episode. So any episode of the podcast, whether it be a full-length episode or whether it be a situation report, go into the show notes. There's always links there. There's always information there. There's always playlist links in there as well. And if you do not know where to go and subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast, there are tons of places for you to check it out. All of these and then some. So wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, you can subscribe. I also know that there is the new feature on Facebook, which is now pulling my podcast onto the Mistress Carrie Facebook page. And what it's doing is it's creating like a video file of my podcast. And it's not an actual video of the interviews, but it's turning the podcast into something that you can just click play on a player right on the podcast, and it's generating those purposefully. So even if I don't put the episodes up on my Facebook page, they're ending up there organically anyway. And so that makes it really easy if you are not tech savvy and you don't know how to subscribe to a podcast. I can't tell you how many people I've had say, your podcast is the first podcast I've ever listened to, because I think people think it's a lot harder to listen to podcasts than it actually is. I mean, if you have an iPhone, there's a purple square that comes on your iPhone that says podcast. You just click that and just search Mistress Carrie and it comes up and you hit subscribe and that's it. It's right there on your phone built in. Same thing with Google. But if that is too much of a jump in technology, which I get it, and a lot of people maybe are sitting at a desk and you've got your computer, and if you got Facebook open, you can listen to the episodes right on my Facebook page. But there are a ton of different places that you can check out the episodes. Exciting news, guys. Are you ready? The Mistress Carrie podcast is now in 117 countries. I believe it's getting hard to keep track of how many countries because there's a lot of them, but I believe the 3 new countries that we welcome to the Mistress Carrie podcast are Tunisia, El Salvador, and Cambodia. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I am fairly certain I'm right. The Mistress Carrie podcast is now in 117 countries, and our neighbors to the north, Canada, are still at number 2 as far as countries that are listening to the podcast the most. So I want to thank everybody in Canada that's listening to the podcast, if any of us are joining us here in the war room. But I was really excited when I saw that some new countries came in this week, because we've been keeping a running tally since the podcast launched, and it's pretty cool. Now, one of the other things we always do here in the war room, especially for the new people, if I haven't talked your ear off already and sent you running to the hills, is we talk a lot about music news and what's going on in music, because that's one of the things that brings us all together is our love of bands and music and live concerts. So, first of all, the Led Zeppelin documentary, the trailer is out. They still have not announced where we're going to be able to watch this documentary. It's the first officially sanctioned documentary by the members of Led Zeppelin. All 3 remaining members of the band did interviews, and then they went back and got all of this archival video footage of John Bonham and did it with the cooperation of his estate to put this out. And the members of the band wanted it to be all about the music. They didn't want the documentary to be about the mud shark and the groupies and all the other stuff. Their legacy, what has stood the test of time more than anything, is the songs. And so that's what they wanted a documentary to be about. It's supposed to be out before the end of the year. They just haven't announced when it's coming out. The Matrix Resurrections is coming out on December 22nd on HBO Max and in theaters. I know that you guys are like big in the movies, which, by the way, I forgot to put it up here on the screen. This Friday night, The Many Saints of Newark, the prequel for The Sopranos, that's coming out Friday night on HBO Max and also in theaters as well. And I'm pretty excited for that. Let's see. New releases this week. Asking Alexandria has their new album out called See What's on the Inside. And also Black Sabbath is reissuing Technical Ecstasy this week. So that's what's coming out new this week as far as music goes. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. Upcoming October 15th, Tom Morello is releasing his new solo album, The Atlas Underground Fire. Bad Wolves has their new album coming out on October 29th called Dear Monsters. There's a lot of great stuff coming out in October. Nikki Sixx has not only his new book called The First 21, but also the new 6 a.m. album is coming out as well. And the Nikki Sixx book is all about Frank Farana, the Idaho farm boy, and his pilgrimage to Los Angeles and him becoming Nikki Sixx. And what happened this week is that Nikki Sixx sold his LA mansion and he's moving to Wyoming because he thought it would be a nicer place to raise his daughter. And so it's really interesting that when his book about the first 21 years of his life and how he went from Idaho and moved to LA to chase his dreams of being a rock star, and now that he has achieved those dreams, he's moving to Wyoming with his family. It's just kind of interesting. News came out yesterday that Judas Priest has postponed their tour. It is postponed until they get more details about their guitar player's heart condition, who just went in and had surgery. He's fine. He's recovering. He's resting. He's comfortable. But until they know when he is going to be able to go back out on the road, they can't reschedule the dates. And so the postponed tour includes the show at Mohegan Sun on October 30th, and unfortunately, the Halloween night show at the Songus Arena in Lowell, Massachusetts, which I really wanted to go to because I thought Judas Priest on Halloween would be a blast. However, the tour has been postponed. Dave Grohl's new book, The Storyteller, comes out next week. That is so many of Dave Grohl's. He calls them anecdotes, but they're stories from his life. Growing up, being a local drummer in DC, obviously his time in Nirvana, his time in the Foo Fighters, stories from everybody from David Bowie and Paul McCartney to playing drums for Tom Petty to going swing dancing with AC/DC and to playing at the White House, among other things. That is all the stuff. And yes, it's available as an audiobook as well. So the new Dave Grohl book, The Storyteller, comes out next week. Also coming out in October, The Lives of Brian Johnson from AC/DC. His autobiography is coming out, which goes from his childhood all the way up through the release of AC/DC's Back in Black, which is, I think, the really interesting story about where he came from musically, how he ended up getting the job following the death of Bon Scott, and then the pressure of working on an album to get out from under the shadow of Bon Scott and to come out with AC/DC Back in Black. What? Which, by the way, that album comes up in this interview with Toby Wright on episode 69. We actually talk about Bob Rock and we talk about some of his biggest albums to date. And so we talk about, obviously, the Black album, Back in Black, I mean. So that's all in episode 69 of the podcast as well. Let's see. There are tickets available. Tours have gone on sale. A lot of stuff has gotten announced since last week. Korn and Stained had to reschedule some dates because Jonathan Davis tested positive and got sick with COVID a while back. This Friday night, the rescheduled date of Korn and Stained is at the Xfinity Center. There are still some tickets left available if you want to go see Korn and Stained at the Xfinity Friday night. Volbeat and Ghost, that entire tour went on sale last Friday. And that has a date of February 11th at the DCU Center in Worcester, Massachusetts. And speaking of tours that just got announced and that go on sale, if you missed the announcement yesterday, Tool is going back out on the road. They announced the tour yesterday. The entire tour goes on sale this coming Friday. They are touring in the U.S. January, February, and March, and then they're going to Europe for April and May. The entire U.S. run of the tour goes on sale this Friday. So no matter where you're watching me here in the War Room, The Tool tour is probably coming to a city near you in January, February, or March, but all the tickets go on sale on Friday. And that includes a February 19th date at the TD Garden in Boston. And those tickets go on sale Friday, obviously. And then the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour has already gone on sale. The date at the DCU Center in Worcester is November 27th, but it's a national tour for the holidays. And if you have never seen Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you are missing out. They are unbelievable live. It's the 25th anniversary of Christmas Eve and Other Stories. And if you just want to go and be wowed with the production, with the music, TSO is one of those bands like Tool, like when you go see somebody like Roger Waters, they just take the sound and the production to a whole other level. And you walk out of there going, fuck, that was amazing. And so those are all of the shows that you need to make sure that you're aware of. Megadeth had to cancel a bunch of their tour dates because they were supposed to be going up to Canada and had to postpone a bunch of their dates because they couldn't get over the border because Canada requires vaccinations. And the only Americans they're allowing in are vaccinated people. And there are people on the tour that haven't been vaccinated yet. However, you can hear Megadeth live on the Unplugged in Boston album, which was recorded at Bill's Bar on May 9th in 2001. The album is available everywhere. And when you go and listen to Symphony of Destruction, yes, that's me, with a very high-pitched voice. Which brings me to some events I want to tell you guys about. So, coming up on Saturday, this just got announced. There is, speaking of movies, this is what I was telling you guys about earlier because I know how big of movie buffs you guys are. There's a place in Westboro, Mass, on Route 9 called Hollywood Salvage. There's a lot of these places in cities that do a lot of television and movie production. So obviously, there's places around Hollywood that do this kind of stuff. There's places in Louisiana, in Atlanta, but there are places that sell off the furniture, the costumes, the props from productions once they wrap. And that's what Hollywood Salvage does in Westboro. And this Saturday, they're having what they call, or this Saturday and Sunday, I should say, they're having their first backlot sale. And I'm going to be there on Saturday afternoon. So when, after I get off the air, I will meet you guys if you want to go and poke around. It's everything from furniture, clothes, shoes, props, like whatever would be in the background of television shows like Nosferatu and Dexter. There's all kinds of stuff. And they're not going to throw it away. So they end up with a company like Hollywood Salvage and people buy this stuff. And I thought it was really interesting. So I am going to be at their first backlot sale on Saturday afternoon. The details are on the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. And then the other thing is, and this is not open to the public, I'm just saying this in case there are people that are joining us in the war room tonight that I met in Afghanistan 10 years ago. The 182nd Infantry 10-year deployment anniversary reunion. That's a lot. Let me say that again. So the 182nd Infantry of the Mass Army National Guard was deployed in Afghanistan in 2011 and 2012. When I did my AAF to Afghanistan trip, that's who I was embedded with. They're doing a 10-year deployment anniversary reunion this weekend. You've got to obviously be a member of the Deuce that served in that deployment. It's for the guys that served together to get back together again. It's open to the veterans and their spouses, and the reunion is happening on Saturday. And if you were a member of the Deuce, if you were part of that deployment, go to the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. You go in, you sign up. The reunion is free, and you can go and hang out with all the guys that you were deployed with. And I'm trying to help get the word out because it's so hard. 10 years after a deployment, these guys have scattered everywhere. I can't tell you how many of these guys we've lost, but then so many of them have moved out of state, gotten out of the military, may or may not have Facebook, may or may not have Instagram or any of the other social media outlets that would make it easier to keep in touch with the people they served with. So I'm trying to help them get the word out. So if you were in Afghanistan with the 182nd Infantry in 2011 and 2012, go to the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. If you know somebody that was on that deployment, please go to my event calendar, get the link, and share it with them because we're trying to get the word out to everybody that we can. Okay, here's a couple other cool things that I wanted to tell you guys about. So in the news, here are a couple other podcasts that I was asked to be a guest on. One of them is a podcast called Film Crickets, where they talk about movies. And what they do is they bring on a guest, and the guest picks the movie, and they analyze the movie on the episode. And so I was a guest on the Film Crickets podcast, and they asked me to select a movie. Originally, I selected Cannonball Run because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. We could not find the Cannonball Run on any streaming services. I have it on VHS, and I believe I have it on DVD, but we couldn't find it on any streaming services. So we decided to change the movie. And so the movie that I chose for the most recent episode of the Film Crickets is a movie that we have talked about here in the War Room because I love it so much. And it's Oscar starring Sylvester Stallone. It stars Marissa Tomei, Chaz Palminteri. It's just an amazing movie. I love it so much. It's completely random. It's one of 2 times Sylvester Stallone tried to be a comedian. And so we analyzed the movie, and that episode, if you go to my blog, is up there. So you can check it out. And also, I was asked to be a guest on Bend and Scoop. And Bend and Scoop is a podcast that promotes indie bands, unsigned indie bands. And so what they do is they play a bunch of indie music, and then they always bring in a guest at the end of the episode to talk about music, to talk about vinyl, to talk about the music they love. And so I'm on the most recent episode of Bend and Scoop as well. And both of these podcasts, everything's backwards. Both of these podcasts are in my blog, all linked. You'll see the logos up there if you want to go and listen to them. So I wanted to thank those guys for having me on their podcast. I really appreciated being a guest. I love doing that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to make it easier for you guys to find it. And then obviously, I'm on Mr. Toby Wright's podcast, My Right Stuff, because he's on my podcast. And we were on each other's podcast. So there you go. Mail call. Unfortunately, we blew our wad last week at mail call at the boat, and there was nothing in the mail call this week. So there's the address. You don't need to send me anything, but there was so much amazing stuff that happened last week at the boat that came in the mail call that we'll take this week off from the mail call. However, I do owe you guys a picture, and I promise you I'll bring it in the War Room next week. So I got the Kiss rubber duckies for my rubber ducky themed bathroom, and I owe you guys a picture of my rubber ducky collection. So I will put that on the War Room next week for episode 152. Want to remind you guys, the weather is getting colder, and that means you need some warm clothes. So there are beanies and hoodies available in the Mistress Carrie online store with the t-shirts and everything else that's in there. And I can tell you that I have been working on some new merch ideas for the holidays. So if you guys have suggestions, feel free. You can always put them in the comments here in the War Room. You can always click contact on mistresscarrie.com and send me a direct message that way. And obviously anybody with a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass can always make suggestions as well because, well, that's what the Backstage Pass is for. So if you do not have the Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, very easy for you to get it. You can go to patreon.com/Mistress Carrie, or you can just click the Patreon button right on mistresscarrie.com. The Backstage Pass gives you access to an exclusive monthly live stream, which I'm, by the way, doing this weekend. I wanted to do it the weekend of my birthday, but I didn't want to do it Friday night. We seem to have really good luck doing them on Sunday nights as opposed to trying to do them on the weekend. So this Sunday night, I'm doing the Backstage Pass exclusive live stream live from MCHQ, my studio, at 7:30. So if you want to get access to the live stream, get yourself a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. You also find out who's going to be on the podcast way ahead of everyone else, so you can submit questions. So anytime that I do interviews with artists, I always try to put in some of the questions from the Backstage Pass holders. because those are the questions that you guys are wondering. And so I want to be able to ask those questions for you. You also get early access to event tickets like the 150th episode of The War Room. And you also get access to exclusive concert ticket giveaways. And so one of the benefits that is happening more and more with the Backstage Pass holders is that when I get access to tickets, whether it be from the bands, whether it be from the venues, the managers, whoever it is, I share the wealth. And it's not a contest-based thing. If you have a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, I always want to give you a little something extra. So I give people access to free concert tickets. And so if you don't have a Backstage Pass yet, that is another way and another benefit to getting a Backstage Pass. Plus, I'm posting all the time and putting up pictures, and sometimes I put blogs up. Obviously, as the world opens up more, as I'm able to have more and more events, I have pitched the idea of having separate Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass sections at shows, VIP areas, that kind of stuff. It was kind of hard to do at the boat because it's such a tiny place, but there's a lot of things. Membership has its privileges. So if you haven't gotten a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, then there you go. Wait, what did you guys say? Hold on. Now when you have things to open for the mail call, yes, exactly. Oh, Better Off Dead. That would have been a good one for the film crickets. I need a Mistress Carrie marathon. Speaking of the marathon, actually, I wanted to remind you guys that the Boston Marathon is being run on Columbus Day this year. So it's coming up pretty quick in like a week and a half. And I just wanted to put it out there that I ran the last marathon before COVID in 2019. I cannot imagine what it would have been like to be training for the 2020 marathon only to have it be canceled, to then train for the 2021 marathon, to have it pushed back 6 months. The people that are running the Boston Marathon on Columbus Day have been waiting a really long time. They have trained through the worst of weather. They have been anxious. They have had a hard time fundraising because so many people have been out of work and there have been so many people in need. And if you have the ability to line up along the route on Columbus Day and cheer these runners on, running the Boston Marathon, even though it's not on Patriots Day, I think is a really important thing for Boston to try and get itself back to normal. Yes, the sporting events are happening. The Sox are at Fenway. The Pats are at Gillette. The TD Garden has announced, their COVID policies as we get into hockey season and basketball season. But getting the marathon back is a really important thing. Running the marathon was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And for anybody that's running this year, you've been waiting so long. And we as a city, as a region in New England, have been promising you an amazing experience when you finally got to run the Boston Marathon. No matter what country you're traveling from, no matter what state you're traveling from, if it's your first marathon or your 100th, if you're running for a charity or just running for your own personal best time, if you have the ability to go to the marathon on Columbus Day, please go and cheer those runners on because they need us, especially the ones that go crossing the finish line at like 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. like I did. Those are the people, as they're tearing down stuff and pulling up the barricades, and the elite runners are already showered and eating dinner at a fancy restaurant or at an after party. Those runners, the novice runners, the amateurs like me, the people that cheered for me got me across that finish line. My husband was there, not my husband at the time, but he's my husband now, my boyfriend. He won boyfriend points. But my family was there. Everyone from the radio station was there. All the first responders and the medical personnel that were along the route that were just cheering for me as I went by. That's how I finished. And so just do everything you can to support the runners next Monday on Columbus Day because they are definitely going to need it. Want to remind you guys, if today is your birthday, we always here in the War Room cheers people's birthdays. If today is your birthday, you share it with Ed Sullivan, you share it with Benny King, you share it with Marilyn Manson's drummer Ginger Fish. And I know my birthday is not until Friday, but I won't see you guys now until after my birthday. So I wanted to cheers with you guys for my birthday coming up on Friday as well. So cheers. Oh, Fernandez makes a good sangria. It's delicious. It's so good. It's not right how good it is. So anybody that it's your birthday today, and to everybody that I share a birthday with on Friday, happy birthday to all of you, and happy unbirthday to Keith, because that's what we do. Sorry, I had an itch on my face. Let's see. Want to remind you guys of all the places you can find me on social. There they all are. Someday I'm going to get used to things being backwards. Someday. Today is not one of those days, but someday I'm going to. And I think that's it, guys. I don't know where Wednesday went, but obviously she's gone. There's no more cookies in here. Happy birthday. Mine is Sunday, so happy birthday to you too, Mike. It'll beat Face Police, Tracy said. Wednesday, come here. Why are you crying? Come here. She's crying about something. I bet she dropped like one of her favorite toys, or it's stuck under a couch, because that's what she does. Come here, Wednesday. What are you doing, Zero? Wednesday's best friend just walked into the war room. What are you doing in here? Where's Wednesday? Where'd she go? Do you want to come up and say hi to everyone? Do you want to come up? Come here. You can come up. You don't want to come up? I'd make it a zero cam if you wanted to come up. There's no cookies over there. I'm sorry, the cookies are gone. There's no cookies. She's looking at me like, where are the cookies, for fuck's sake? Wednesday, come here. Come here. There's no cookies. My buddy Mike says, happy birthday. Keith says, Keith, tell Mike I said thank you. We want to see Zero. John, I'm trying to get her up on the couch. Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up? She doesn't want to come up. Hold on. Let's see if I can move the pug cam. Hold on. Zero, do you want to say hi? There we go. Say hi, Zero. Zero. Say hi. You're on the pug cam. Are you a good girl? Yeah. That's Wednesday's best friend. Zero. Are you a good girl? Your old lady. Let's see. George Lynch from Doc and Turd 67 today. He did? How did I miss George Lynch's birthday on the birthday list? Fuck. Yeah, Zero came to say hi. Exactly. I know. Everybody says hi, Zero, because you're so beautiful. With your little pink nose. How did I miss George Lynch's birthday? Who, by the way, does not look 67. He is jacked. He's huge. And by the way, his daughter is the one dating the guitar player from Judas Priest. So, Oedipal complex. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying. How often do you know a buddy that's a cop and then he has a daughter and she marries a cop or becomes a cop or whatever? I guess the same thing works when your dad's a rock star. You inevitably meet a rock star. That's just what happens. What can you do? Yes, Paula says Zero's adorable. She totally is. Let's see. Sir Angelo says hello to the girls. Aw, thank you, Sir Angelo. She is beautiful, Michelle. Zero's older, and so she kind of taught Wednesday how to be a dog, because Wednesday, I had her from when she was a little nugget, and she was adorable, and Wednesday helps her. So, Zero helped Wednesday kind of do dog things, I guess. And then the only other thing is Sunday. Sunday's going to be interesting in Gillette. It's going to be an interesting day. Goat versus goat, as they're saying. So, go Pats. Please. Let's see. Has anyone seen Eminem's daughter? She's beautiful. Eric, that reminds me of something before I get out of here, because I thought it was hilarious. Eminem's daughter, first of all, is gorgeous. Second of all, this week, Eminem is opening an Italian restaurant in Detroit named Mom's Spaghetti. Think about it. It's hilarious. Eminem's Italian restaurant opens this week. It's called Mom's Spaghetti. Classic. George still does play amazing guitar, Eric. You're 100% right. Let's see. Pats have no choice. Pats have no chance. Sorry, not sorry, says Joss. Yeah. I'm going to cheer for the Pats, but I just don't think it's going to be that good of a day. But it is possible to beat Tom Brady. It happened last weekend, but the New England Bucks. I know it's New England South versus New England North coming up this weekend. All right, guys, I'm going to run because I haven't done tomorrow's sit rep yet. And usually that's what I do when I get out of here in the war room. But do not forget, episode 69 of the Mistress Carrie podcast goes live tonight at midnight, featuring producer Toby Wright. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. There's a lot of behind the scenes stories and conversations about some of the biggest artists in rock and roll. And you're getting it from the perspective of the guy that helped to make the music that you love. And Toby's awesome. So you definitely got to check it out. The Meatballs. Let's see. Yes, Brady is going to set the passing yard career record this weekend. I know. I just liked it so much better when he played for the Patriots. Damn it. All right, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here in the War Room. I will meet you guys back here next Tuesday night at 8:30. Episode 151 of Cocktails in the War Room is now in the books. I'll see you guys later.